Welcome back to another episode of The Unfortunate Reality. This is my honorary guest, my husband, who is a working American blue-collared man. And we're here to discuss none other than the infamous Donald Trump and Joe Biden debate that happened on June 27th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you missed it, I suggest going back and watching it between none other than Donald Trump and President Joe Biden. Kind of a showdown for our generation. And that's what we will be discussing on this video. So, Jacob, as a hard-working blue-collared American, how do you feel about the presidential debate?
It's great.
You took notes! Use no cards. Actually, I'm having Joe Biden on my channel. The idea, and I am great. He said the idea like 5 times in the debate. Every time he got back to his mic, he was like, the idea. What were we talking about again?
2, the idea that those people are patriots, the idea he's refusing to, the idea that you have a right to, the idea that somehow, the idea.
They had him loaded with something.
Definitely had him.
He was losing it at the end.
He did. I said that to my friend on the phone today. She called me to talk about the debate, and I was like, I could tell at the beginning that they'd just given him the Adderall or whatever they gave him, the upper to keep him upright, which apparently CNN was, those were the only liberal standards, was just to keep Joe Biden upright on the stage.
Stay alert, to stay engaged, and to stay awake.
President Biden has to show that he can stand there for an extended period of time.
Remain upright.
But you could tell towards the end the drugs were definitely wearing off.
Move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
And then I saw like CNN tried to save him a couple times. They're like, all right, that's enough, Joe. Trump, you go. You start talking. And then I did not enjoy the part. This morning I watched on the Daily Wire where they did their little man cave talk with the leather chairs and the cigars and the whiskey. I'll have to look up what they call that. But anyway, they all get together and they talked about the debate, of course. And they're on the show and he's like, oh yeah, the part where they're talking about golf is hilarious. I was like infuriated with both Trump and Biden for even talking about golf. I was like, you're wasting precious time during this.
Yeah,
like,
that was hilarious. The whole thing was hilarious.
You thought it was hilarious?
Yeah.
I was aggravated. I was like, I don't even have time to play golf.
And then Joe was like taking Trump way too serious.
Okay, that part was pretty funny. He was like, quit acting like a child.
Yeah, well, and then what else did he say? He was telling him,
We knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way.
I was just playing golf. I was playing golf. And we were out there on the field. I was like, are these two fools like arguing about golf right now? I just don't think that's what qualifies to be a president.
yeah.
And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a...
President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn.
Let's not act like children.
Or recently, I've seen this meme going around. Biden has been compared to the Titanic. Many people are saying that that was a catastrophic event in history, which I think that our ancestors are definitely going to look back and think of this as a catastrophic part of history. If America is even America, then. Do you think like 100 years from now, they're going to be like, ah, yes, America, showing like our TikTok clips? Oh God, that's going to be bad. You know we're all grouped into that, right? Like, you could be a boomer, you could be Gen X, you could be a millennial, Gen Z. We're all grouped into that. And they're going to see that, and we're going to look like fools. Like, with all the technology, and these people were trying to, like, surgically remove their penises and sew up their vaginas. Like, all of the technology could have solved world hunger. And we're arguing whether a man can have a baby. It's ludicrous. Anyway, back to the debate. I digress.
We should have never been in Ukraine.
No.
Ukraine could have took care of themselves. We should never send them.
100%. I'm so glad Donald Trump brought that up, because they're talking about Ukraine.
As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
The war that started 3 years ago, right as Joe Biden is elected president, Russia invades Ukraine, and then they're throwing it back on Trump. Like,
are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
Acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled.
well, you must agree with Vladimir Putin because you said he was your friend. I don't know how many of you guys have friends, but I don't agree with everything my friends say. Just because I like somebody doesn't mean that everything they say.
President should have been with contact with all the other presidents.
Well, they have to be. And we're America. We're the world leaders. So, yeah, I don't understand why everyone is so shocked that Trump talked to Kim Jong-un or Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin. They're world leaders. They have nuclear bombs. You'd want to be friends with people who have the same weapons as you do. And they're like, oh, Donald Trump's all kissy-kissy with Vladimir Putin. Well, he didn't invade Ukraine the entire time Trump was president. He also, another thing Trump brought up, didn't take any land from us.
Yeah.
He took land from Bush, took land from Obama, and from Biden, but not Trump. So it's interesting that they're so worried that what's he going to do after he takes Ukraine? Then he's going to take the rest of NATO, and then America along with it. Well, we're slowly selling parts of our land off to Vladimir Putin already. And we're the only country that does that, by the way. Do you think the United States owns anything in Russia? We don't own anything in China, that's for sure. China owns things in America. Russia owns things in America. Plots of land, businesses. Why is that allowed? Just saying. Oh, and they did talk about the Israel-Palestine war. You all know how I feel about that war. Awful. Gruesome, tragic, all of the above. Can we say Joe Biden's terrible? Joe Biden is terrible. If you don't know that by now, there's no help for you.
no hope for America.
I'm sorry if you want to be a creepy guy in women's bathrooms and that's your only option is voting for Joe Biden, but think about other people, damn it. I need groceries, okay? I gotta feed the kids that you want to indoctrinate. What's that saying? They can't breed them, so they steal them? Okay, anyway, yeah. So a lot of good stuff brought up about Ukraine. A war that should never have been started, for sure. They're not gonna win. I don't know who thought they were gonna win. I actually have seen like comments online from actual Ukrainians too. And they're like, we'll never stop fighting for our freedom. And I'm like, you know what would have earned you freedom? If you didn't like go back and forth between like, oh, I want to be part of NATO. Oh, I want to be part of Russia. It just doesn't really scream freedom, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You just can't be indecisive if you want to be free. And they're like, we'll never stop fighting for our freedom. And they're like drawing swastikas on them. I'm like, do you remember where the swastika came from? It was not freedom. I just feel like they don't really, I don't think that like their people really understand. And they're so divided as a nation. And then there's people who do want to go back to Russia, and then there's people that do want to be part of NATO. And what's interesting to me is that the United States government is actually funding the riots for the white supremacists over there, the Nazi sympathizers and the actual racists over in Ukraine. America has no problem funding their riots. And then over here, we fund BLM riots against white supremacy.
Yeah.
I always find that just ironic. Feels like America can't pick a side either. They do have a side, the lizard people side, under the ground.
They're lizard people.
I mean, it's not scientifically proven, but I feel like we're onto something with the lizard people. You know, some people actually have gone as far, like I've read conspiracy theories about this. Some people have gone as so far to be like, we evolved from apes and they evolved from lizards and they've been controlling us since then. And I'm like, holy damn, I wish I was like cold-blooded. They obviously evolved a lot quicker than we did. And we had the sun. Joe Biden, in his earlier part of his term, terminated Trump's plans to open the pipeline and start pumping our own, as he calls it, black.
The worst thing Joe Biden has ever done was close the pipeline. Trump opens it up, which he says he will. We'll have fewer costs in food.
Grocery prices, yes. Main concern for most Americans right now is the fact that our groceries are twice as much as they used to be.
Twice as much. And inflation was caused by Joe Biden.
Yeah. And despite where they say they were left with a devastated economy because of Trump and COVID that they had to fix, they were left with a really good economy. We were at 3% inflation.
Yeah.
Houses, the average home interest rate was 2% when Trump left office. It's what, 7%, 9% now in some places, some areas. But anyway, opening up the oil line, the pipeline.
Yes. If he opens it up, everything will be cheaper. You just think about it in your head. Food will be way cheaper. To get it to the stores, it takes gas. Everything takes fuel. When fuel is cheaper, we'll all have more money.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. Anytime that gas is extremely cheap, everything is cheap because it's easier to transport. The more power you have to take to run something, the more you have to charge for it. That's why Red Bull's like $5. In your local coffee stands, it's $10 for a cup of coffee now. I remember getting a gift card for $5, and you can get like a nice Frou-Frou coffee with a gift card for $5. Now they're like, you can wait in line with that gift card. A gift card? We don't take those. Remember when Subway stopped that? I think that was right.
Jared?
Yeah, no, not Jared. Jared doesn't own Subway. You know that, right? Yeah, well, Jared is definitely a pedophile. That's been proven. Jared was part of the Me Too movement for sure. And then every like fat person thought that they could get thin off of just eating Subway sandwiches. You're like, why isn't this working? Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gold under our feet.
gold under our feet.
Yep. And we're gonna use it.
You ever wonder how they could
I can't fucking do this right now.
You ever wonder, like, simultaneously how they can care so much about money and then not care about money? Like, if it comes to power, they're gonna pick power even if it, like, drives us up, right? But, like, if they need, like, they always have a way to get money. They don't really care about the money that we have because they always have a way of getting money.
Yeah.
They got a plan B. I know they do.
I knew a girl once that took Plan B.
I've known several girls that have taken Plan B.
Yeah, what? And then the whole thing with what was the...
It's not really an abortion.
The title called
Roe versus Wade?
Yeah, so he set that whole plan in place.
As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't.
Well, yeah, so it's not written in our Constitution. There's nothing about abortion, because you got to remember, when the Constitution was written, people were, like, trying to have as many babies as they could. If you were a barren woman, you were basically useless. Like, it was shameful that you couldn't have children.
Yeah.
And so people tried to have as many kids as they could. To fathom anyone actually having an abortion back then was just nonsensical to them. So they didn't write anything into the abortion. So when we had Roe versus Wade for the right to have an abortion, it was kind of during the feminist times in the early 1960s. Late 1950s is when they started, but in the early 1960s is when they really heated things up. They're burning bras and I don't need no man, I'm an independent woman, single mom bullshit. And It did used to be somewhat of a righteous fight. I do agree women didn't have what they should have had as being the counterpart to the male species. I agree with what Trump says. You know, if it's for medical reasons, incest or rape, which usually incest and rape are about the same thing. I know that there's a few people that willingly do incest, but most of the time it's rape. And they brought up Roe versus Wade because Donald Trump was one of the first presidents to give it back to the states, which is all it was. I even posted that on my Facebook. I was like, you guys realize that it just gave the vote back to the people for abortions, and like, you're a bigot if you really think that, and you're a white supremacist if you really think that. And I hadn't really found my voice yet, so I was just like, oh, I guess I didn't do enough research. And then I did more research and I was like, yeah, no, that's what they did. They just gave the right for abortion back to the states. Some voted more liberal, some voted more conservative. Like if a lady tries to leave the state to go get an abortion, then when she comes back, they'll arrest her and put her in prison for murder. Now that's a little fucked up. I'm not gonna lie. That's like extensive. I'm a conservative all the way, but Jesus Christ, if a lady's willing to go across like state lines to get an abortion, just let her fucking do it. I get why abortion is a touchy subject, and I see why liberals hang so heavily on that one, because it's probably their only stance, like, in this fight anymore. Yeah. Because normal people are like, no, I don't want drag queens reading to my children. You know, normal people don't want that. They don't want the LGBTQ flag in their classrooms. They don't want their kids gender bending. Normal people aren't racist. I mean, the BLM thing literally started during COVID. They call that the Summer of Love. After George Floyd, that's what they call it, the Summer of Love. When they burnt cities to the ground. Let's not ever forget that they burnt entire cities to the ground. But I think in today's age, we have anti-whiteism. And I always say that. It's got to swing the other way. I remember being in 4th grade learning about slavery, and I was like, when's it going to come back on us? You know, like, when are white people going to be the slaves? And I don't think it's going to be like living on farms.
Yeah, Joe was all talking about,
I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyers should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that.
I was literally just talking about this.
$10,000 tax credit to black people just for buying a house? What about the rest of us who are trying to buy a house? Like, it's literally just being like, okay.
Why don't you just say the people are struggling? Why does it have to be determined that you're not determined, but you're black?
Yeah.
And you get this because you're black, and it's just like, why don't just go for the people struggling?
Well, that's what I said too. Like, nothing should be based off of gender or race. I think they should just all be merit. Like, if you qualify for X, Y, and Z, you check these boxes, you're in this income, you're doing this with your life, you have this, and this, then that's how we should divide it. That's because, I mean, there's black people who make more money than white people.
Yeah.
There's white people living in poverty and rich black neighborhoods.
There's riches of all races.
Yeah, so how could we say that there's inequality? The only inequality is the super, super rich, the elite, and then poor people. Literally the only inequality that we have here in this country. That's like saying that like trans people should get like a tax credit because they're trans. It's just anyone can say their life's rough and be like, I deserve money because my life's rough. It's rough on 99% of us, so just buckle up, you know? Like, bring an extra pair of underwear, it's gonna be a rough ride, folks. Like, I didn't agree with that at all. I thought that was a super racist thing for him to say, basically saying that black people will have an advantage over all other ethnicities here in the United States because of something that happened over a century ago. Which, by the way, fun fact, Africa was the last place to make slavery illegal in 1980. There are people alive in this day and age that are in their late 30s that were alive when, or early 40s I guess now, that were alive when Africa still had slavery legalized.
That's insane.
And we're bitching and moaning about something that we did away with clear back in the 1800s. Only thing we can do now is just move forward from the madness. Try to forget any of that ever happened. Not truly forget, but in the way that matters. Like, forget the emotional part. Just learn from the history of it. We know now that slavery is not a good idea. We shouldn't do it to anybody. Including having white people work to pay tax credits for black people to get houses, to pay retribution to black people. Pretty soon white people just aren't going to have jobs. That's the truth of it. Like, why would we work just to have all of our paycheck given to everybody else?
Yeah.
That's literally ridiculous. Slavery. Yeah. That's like, you work, here's $9, and we took $1,900 from you because black people were slaves, we took the land from Indians, the Democrats need it for a new abortion clinic, some LGBTQ people were killed, so we need to fund their funerals. Like, I just feel like anybody that's a regular white person is just gonna kind of give up. Because I'm certainly not going to do it. I'm not going to fund everybody else's problems. Just be a strong person. Like I said, there's successful black people and there's white trash. We didn't come up with the term white trash because every white person's doing fucking great. As always, have a great weekend, hug your children, and may the odds be ever in your favor.